LexMedia, we're not only a TV studio, we also have an art gallery right here in our space. And every month we like to feature local artists. With me today is Peggy Fenner, who you might recognize in town. She is a retired Lexington school teacher. Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you. Thank you. I really welcome having the opportunity to share my art with you.
Awesome. Tell us about your exhibit and what you have here today.
Well, today I have a full exhibit, a collection of pieces created with alcohol ink.
Ooh, what's alcohol ink?
Well, I'll show you these little bottles. Here are examples of alcohol ink.
Oh, wow.
And they are the most vibrant colors to work with. They're messy. They have their own way with you. They say we're going to go our way and you have to go with what they're doing, and it is a wonderful, wonderful media to work with. So what I have done is put together this collection of alcohol ink.
Okay, and what is your whole exhibit called?
It's called Reflections of Spring, vibrant and subtle. There are many pictures of birds and flowers and reflective writing pieces.
Okay.
And I worked on this all winter.
Oh.
And I've created this to jumpstart spring because we've had to wait a long time, haven't we?
Well, we would love to jump into spring with you. Take us through the first one.
Well, first of all, we have this little bird. And I love to work with things along with my alcohol pieces. And this is this is called roving wool bird. And if he were to speak to you, he would say, imagine. An invitation has been sent out to all to shed the heavy layers of winter and imagine dissolving into the luminous colors and textures of spring, where its aliveness teases your senses, tickles your skin, and asks you to RSVP. By giving a sigh, then dunking your bare feet into a sparkling sun-splashed puddle while shouting yes to spring. Now in this piece, Julie, these are all the underlayers of the earth, just waiting, waiting, being fed, even during the crusty months of winter. And things are going to arise to the surface, and the water is going to start flowing somewhere, and the sun is beginning to rise, and there are going to be beautiful sunsets. So this is sort of the introduction of spring going this way and back down this way.
I love it. That's beautiful.
Created with those alcohol inks.
The alcohol ink.
Yes.
Okay. Now tell us about this gorgeous purple bird.
Well, it's great to discover ways of making birds. And it's very hard because you want them to feel light and like they could just float away and flutter away. But this bird is kind of a bird that has this watchful eyes. He's static and he's a different type of bird. And with the alcohol inks, he's hiding amongst leaves and places in the bushes. And his name is the elusive bird.
Okay.
Want to hear why?
Yes, tell me why.
Kind of funny, okay. An elusive bird. Bird watchers and ornithologists are mystified by this one elusive bird who only appears once in the spring, then disappears, for the sole purpose of confounding bird watchers and making bird classification absurd. He's just one of a kind bird.
He is beautiful. And tell us a little bit about what these materials are.
Well, do you shop at Home Depot?
Absolutely.
Well, we've got this wonderful world of artistry in Home Depot. They have these wonderful tiles that come in this size, which is just perfect. And then it's sprayed with a particular type of metallic paint.
Okay.
And then when I work with the alcohol inks, this is a smaller tile that I might work with for a while and then erase the colors and things don't show up just right. But it's wonderful to create tiles, alcohol ink tiles. On paper, you don't have the fluidity as much.
Okay.
And if I can get more forms and more things into that little space on a tile.
And the gold border is very nice.
Thank you.
Pretty.
That sort of, hems it in, makes a little frame for it, and makes a contrast to the gray.
All right, well,
Yes.
let's continue to dive into spring.
All right. So in this collection, I wanted to include birds and flowers. Two things particularly. And then here's an example of alcohol ink flowers. And I worked and worked and worked at this.
Really?
I did. You might not be able to see it now, but the colors just weren't right. And it's very hard to get the flow. And then there's one color that's just beautiful that creates spaciousness and light coming from behind. And that's what's always happening with spring. Some force is coming from behind to make things grow. We know nature in its own way is just wonderful. So I wanted to leave sort of this splashy effect.
That's beautiful.
And have something in contrast that's quite dark and dense as a flower. But then we have this, which...
Well, you're featuring my favorite color, which is purple.
Oh,
okay,
mine
so tell us
too.
about the next one.
Well, this flower also took a bit of time, and I used that same alcohol ink called Perry, light Perry. And can you see in here there's gold?
How did you, I don't know if the camera can pick this up, we'll make sure it does. How did you get the gold in there?
Well, they're little bottles, and they're called gold accents. And then when you're working with the ink, and I work with brushes often, I'll put the ink on the tile and I'll sort of make it flow around, and then, oh, I see a flower. And then I'll start pulling at it. It's really quite a messy process at first. Sometimes it's wipe on, wipe off, and then at the end, you take a towel and you put the ink on it, paper towel, and you dab it. Has to be so subtle. Otherwise, it can just ruin what you've already put in for the delicacy of the flowers.
Wow.
But that's the beauty of...
Well, flowers are delicate in real life.
They are. They really are. But these flowers look like they're so happy to just dance together. It's spring. Do a spring dance.
Pretty,
Yes.
pretty. And now it looks like we're moving into the centerpiece of the exhibit.
We are. And I've made a collection of pieces with different textures that represent spring. And this is the guardian of spring.
Wow, look at her.
And guess what she's made out of?
What is she made out of?
Sculpey clay. These little blocks of clay that you mold and then you put in your oven. But before you do that, you put on this wonderful gold or silver powder. So it looks like, doesn't it look like it's metal?
Yes,
It does. A metal sculpture.
It does.
And then my favorite thing is to collect all kinds of little sticks, and I have feathers and flowers, and this is a piece of wood that came from a bush that has branches that have little tiny rectangular pieces of bark. I can't believe this. So this is her sword.
Oh, yes.
And she's standing there saying, nothing's going to interfere with spring. No hurricanes, no storms, nothing. And so here are all the treasures that she's guarding.
And no snow either.
No snow,
That's
absolutely
right.
no more snow.
That's right.
And these little birds had just been playing in the snow, but spring is breaking through. And they're
Yes.
just ready to chirp their little hearts out.
Yeah, they're cute.
And up here, this is a totem. I love working with chunks of wood. I live along the bike path on Spy Pond, and many days in the winter, I just search for pieces of wood. And I'll come upon something, I'll think, this is perfect for making a totem.
Wow.
So here's spring. She looks a little grumpy, but she's serious. And she
just woke up.
She just woke up from winter, right? And then in here are some little eggs that she's holding, and there's, I think, 2 little birdies here. So she's sort of relative to this gal.
Okay.
And then here is a piece that we would imagine reflects what's happening by the ocean. Spring is waking up. Shelves are being shifted around, rocks are being hit by water and waves, and this is a nice indication of what's happening there. But I'd like to read to you, Julie,
Yes, please.
The Guardian of Spring. And here it is. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these pieces, after I make them, I don't even know what I'm thinking.
Okay.
And then I'll lie down and I'll think, oh, I have all these ideas. I have to put them down on paper. Not just on tile, but on paper too.
Right.
So this is the guardian of spring. She dances above the earth while fiercely guarding all elements of nature. Flowers, birds, butterflies, dragonflies, bugs and worms awaken and wiggle beneath her spindly feathered primitive skirt while slowly rehearsing their dance, which will be displayed at their annual song and dance festival, welcoming all things spring.
Oh,
Can
that
you just
sounds
see little
wonderful.
bugs and butterflies just ready
Yes.
to, get out of their little places and
And
dance?
speaking of bugs and butterflies,
Yes.
what's happening on the other side
Yeah,
of her?
these is the guys she's guarding.
Okay.
And they may be insignificant, but not in the whole spectrum of spring.
Okay.
Here's a little dragonfly
Yes.
made with alcohol ink.
Beautiful
You
blue.
can see sort of the air underneath its wings, ready to
Yes.
fly.
Mm-hmm.
Little butterfly,
Mm-hmm.
little trembles, not quite ready to fly, but almost.
Right.
And then this is a bug. Oh, this was funny to work on. At first he was kind of ugly, and I thought, I don't want an ugly bug.
Right.
But in primitive cultures, they take all forms of nature and they make designs. I thought, okay, let's be really primitive. So I started gluing little things on the surface, and that's the thing with alcohol ink. You can make it three-dimensional, two-dimensional, however,
Right.
and make it into a collage in itself.
Well, plus the pink and purple make it a pretty bug.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It just sort of radiates his energy from within.
And now this looks similar to the other to the totem. Is this also a totem?
Yeah. This is also a totem.
Okay.
But this is the totem. This is emerging from spring into summer months. So she's a summer totem with her shells and blue reflecting the water and feathers. And do you love this stick or what?
Yes.
That's one of my favorite things is to go stick walking and stick searching. Not a lot of people are doing that. And people see me go into the woods and they say, what is she doing? And I know exactly. And when I find something like this, it's just worth
Makes
the walk.
piece.
Yes, yes. And then this is another, just a floral example of what you can do with alcohol ink.
This is a pretty, like a fuchsia color.
Yes,
I love the color with the green.
thank you, thank you.
Now I have one question for you. How long did it take you to create the Guardian of Spring?
Probably 3 hours.
3 hours.
Probably
Wow,
3 hours.
I would have said more.
I've made lots of figures out of clay. And then it's finding just how can I make her stand on a piece of wood.
Right.
So then I had to put this stick up inside of her before I put it in the oven. You bake these pieces in your oven, home oven. Sometimes if things get too hot, oh, the smell is awful. And you can asphyxiate yourself, but it's worth it.
Wow.
So then it's a matter of getting this to stand in this. Then I had to drill a hole in the base of this piece of wood.
Okay.
And she looks quite complicated, but really quite easy.
Very impressive.
The one thing is that her legs were supposed to be going in another direction, but it looks like she's dancing
I like that. Yeah, I like
and
that.
suspended in space and
swinging.
doing her job.
Okay, Peggy, now take us through what you called the subtle side of the exhibit.
Well, we have flowers and the earth and the same forms, but you'll see a difference in the way they're presented.
Okay.
Like this is a picture of flowers or a view of flowers where they themselves are excited about being flowers. They had to wait a long time. So they're doing a dance, like a swirly dance with one another. And the leaves are looking up at the flowers, and these are kind of like little eyes looking out. Oh, is it really spring? Yes. So this is very subtle. The colors are subtle. And the other thing is, in this section, there's a lot of space that invites you to come to the piece and just kind of let whatever's going on sink in.
Okay.
It's not coming at you. With the more vibrant pieces, it's like, here's spring.
Right,
This is, oh, come commune with me. Come be with me.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
spring. So
and
I'm gonna
you've written something here. Okay.
I have. This is a reflective piece that's rather serious, but I wanted to include this because it's the process that I go through when I paint.
Okay.
This is called Flowers. Attempting to capture the elusive essence of flowers as an artist often feels like having to be an aromatically, aesthetically, artistically gifted alchemist. And at times it requires possessing the gift of being able to penetrate the invisible space where flowers, stems, leaves, and roots emerge from. Sometimes it makes my paintbrush tremble while attempting to approach the source of nature's well-hidden secrets. And if I'm not successful in gently entering her space, flowers wilt before my eyes. while pinks, yellows, violets, and green hues from my palette dissolve into discouragement. This often happens. But one day, fortunately enough, I discovered that the moment I let go and surrendered and dropped into a mindless space, it felt as if Mother Nature had gently taken hold of my hand and guided me to a fresh place of feeling my own flowerness. Mm-hmm. And then magically, aesthetically, and aromatically, my floral creations began to bloom right before my own eyes.
Wow.
This is what happens.
That is quite the process.
It is. You can't force it.
Right.
And the alcohol inks make you have to let go. And that isn't that what we're being told about everything?
Yes.
Yes.
Let it go.
So it's a
Yes.
wonderful
Yes.
lesson in letting go.
And now, how do you create these atmospheres here in this tile?
Well, it has taken a long time to putter and fiddle and to see what you get. And here's this wonderful Perry ink again. And I maybe start with that. And then I'll put in another color. And lots of times there's a lot of wiping off, or this looks good and this doesn't.
Okay.
Like, see this pattern here?
Yes. How did you do that?
Well, I did it before this. And it's a way of dribbling the ink and the gold inks in there and letting a pattern form on its own.
Okay.
And then you might just pat it a little bit, and leave it. And sometimes you have to do parts of your picture and then leave it and say, oh, what needs to come here?
Right, right.
So you start again, and then this is just a way of taking a brush and as if a branch is going across a mountain. This might be up in ski country, who knows? And then you go, oh, I'm up here. Well, trees aren't blue. Well, in art, you can make anything any color,
That's right.
which is the fun.
That's right. That's right.
So this needed something vibrant. And then up above here, I took some alcohol and I rubbed the paint. And you do that, and that's often the way you create atmospheres. And you might put a little oil in there too,
Okay.
because it doesn't mix and it creates something like that. And then it's like, oh, it's too dark. It's heavy.
Right.
I need to make a moon.
So it sounds like it might take a while to make one of these. How long does it take you to make?
Well, this one might have been a total of an hour, but over different time segments
Okay. Sure.
to
Sure, 'cause you
combine.
Step away from it and
Yes.
come back.
Some of these
Okay.
pieces become very spontaneous creations.
Right.
Others are, I'm about to put you in the trash.
Right.
And then you do something to pull off what you've started.
Well, I hope you weren't going to put this cute little bird in the trash.
Well, he was just sitting alone there chirping, and he said, please, no, don't throw me away. But he is cute.
This is a cute
He's
bird.
a fluffy. It's hard to do birds with alcohol ink
Sure.
because the ink at certain times makes something look static. And I like birds to look like they're alive and ready to take off. But
Okay.
I had to bring him along.
Yeah, he's cute. And you wrote something about him?
I did. And this is another heavy one. So
Okay, we're ready for it.
it's good. All right, birds. Flocks of birds sitting on branches, waiting for the call to fly north again, preening and stretching while allowing their cheerful songs to dissolve into warm southern air currents. How do they know when it's safe time to leave their familiar perches and follow the call of an anonymous migration leader who hopefully guards their secret flight code, guiding them northwards? Each day, Earth rhythms and cycles are predictably shifting in our world. Our world, not just the world of the birds. And we ask, will birds as a species be the ones that assure humanity that their magnificent symphonies and far-reaching wingspans will eclipse any chance that they will lose their way in nature's perfectly and protectively designed cycle? And if this protective cycle becomes true for them, then what about us? As a species that yearns to be protected and untethered, will we be okay? Is everything in the world cycle of the weather and changes, shifts?
Good questions.
Maybe the birds will point the way.
Yeah.
And we look to them and think, they're being cared for. Maybe we are too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Beautiful. I feel the subtleties.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we are in the final segment,
Yes.
the last 3 pieces of your beautiful spring exhibit. Okay, Peggy, so now we're coming into the final segment of your spring exhibit. Take us through these pieces.
Well, here we have some flowers. And this piece came off in a way that I had to work with it a bit. But I have to say that in the center of this piece, again, if the light is on it, there's gold.
Oh yeah, more
And
gold.
there's gold light,
I see that.
which reflects what's happening with the sun. And things only keep flowing when they are sheltered by the sun.
Right.
So I wanted to have this in here, a little bit of lily growing, just an abstract interplay of leaves and petals, and something that says, I just like this.
Right.
There's something about that color of that pink, and it's hard to get
And the-
sometime tones, the same
Okay.
tones again.
And the green is beautiful.
Yes,
I
it's
love
very,
it.
very light, and it's almost like reflecting something from beneath. This was a fun piece to create, interplay.
Yeah.
And then,
And then this cute little guy.
yes, he's been waiting, and he's opening his eyes. See how his eyes are open. It took a long time to figure out, how do you do eyes with alcohol ink?
My bet.
Because that stuff spreads all over the place, and it's very annoying. And then if you erase one little bit, you can't go in and fix it like you can with paints or pencils or colors. So he's just my little guy, just sitting. He's in between a little bit of wintry,
Little bit of
and,
winter, yeah.
and spring. And he's going to be taking off and flying. He's just sitting there by himself, just a little
waiting.
just waiting, just a little subtle bird.
He's cute.
Yes.
Okay, and now this last beautiful subtle piece with this beautiful delicate purple I see there.
This, I think, came about quite easily. And sometimes when you put the ink on, you just let it be and you let it rest. And it brings out the subtlety of your own nature, not the, I'm going to do this, I'm going
Right.
to,
Right.
pull off this piece. So this had a lot of little shapes in it. So with alcohol ink, you go in and like this was a shape underneath here, so you take a brush and then you gently make the little veins. And this is a little leaf that's curling this way. And then even behind, something has happened with the ink on its own.
Right.
And starts to create its own layers of subtlety. Then you go in and then you make little accents, like a little bud is starting to happen.
Okay.
Very subtle. And then you tap with your brush here and other little buds are happening. And then there's this wonderful interplay with the light and everything just begins to open and shine. And this is just one little segment of nature, but a lot of people miss things like this. They're on their walk and they're looking for a big flower, a big tree, or a big leaf. No. And all my pieces, I encourage me to take a softer, more mindful look at nature as it's beginning to sprout.
And that was going to
and
be
come
my next
about.
question.
Yes.
Is when people see your exhibit, what do you want them to take away from it?
To just be excited about spring again. And just to go a little slower and just think of the subtleties that have happened before things blossom.
Right, right, right.
Like one day I was walking on the bike path and I'm walking along looking for wood and I looked down and I saw this patch of Sweet William. Do you know Sweet William? I think that's the name. Tiny, pungent, blue, purple flowers in a little
Okay.
patch, all surrounded by leaves and sticks. And it took my breath away because everything was brown, mud, sticks, chopped up stuff. Here are these little guys. It's
Subtle
like,
beauty popping through.
exactly. Like, who told you to grow? How'd you know to grow here? You little monkeys. I loved it. I wish I'd had my camera and I didn't. And then farther down, as I was rushing to get some sticks, there were little snow blossoms. You know, those snowdrops. Just a little patch. So my encouragement is for people to stop, go slow and look. Because I think once spring starts to blossom, it's astounding.
That's right. It is. And we're happy that spring is here.
We sure are.
Well, thank you for sharing this exhibit with us. Thank you for being our featured artist and taking time to explain this. If you want to come down to LexMedia and see Peggy's work live in our studio, just contact us. We're open Monday through Friday, and we would love to show it to you.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing what's going to come next from you.
Oh, I can't wait to think of something.
Okay.
This is my third show with you.
That's right. This is your
It
third
is,
show.
and I am so grateful that you encouraged me to keep coming.
Thank
It's
you.
wonderful.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.